Today we're going to be looking at hip movement. So to have great glutes, we need your femur to move correctly within the hip socket. So our leg does multiple movements within the hip socket. We have flexion and extension, abduction, adduction, outward and inward rotation. So let's try this right away. So can you lie down on your back and bring your legs up to a 90-90? So both legs up, bent at the knees. Now what I want you to try and do is move your foot out to the side whilst keeping your knees together. And then bring it back in. Now move the other one. So move that out and bring it back in. That is an inward internal rotation. So check. Did they both rotate the same amount inwards? When we internally rotate, your femur rolls forward in the socket and glides back. Now, when you externally rotate, so for example, doing a clam or turning your knees out, your femur rolls back and glides forward. When you move your leg behind you into an extension position, your femur will glide forward. And when you flex your leg forward, your femur glides back. So most postpartum women don't actually have the correct ball and socket movement in the hip from all the pressures of being pregnant, as we were talking about in the last video. So what happens when we lose this motion in the hips? Well, if the hip doesn't move correctly, then compensation happens in the core and the pelvic floor. Basically, if your hip isn't moving correctly in the socket, your pelvic floor will not function correctly. So let's go back and look at this typical mum posture where our hips are slung forward in the socket because we're already clenching our glutes. So if we're standing like this, there is nowhere for our femur to glide back because it's already in this position. So why does this happen? Well, it tends to happen because of weak external rotators and or a lack of core strength causing this glute clenching. So when you're pregnant, which got rid of that core strength, you may have found that you did that waddle walk where your feet turn out. Try this now. Stand up and look at your feet. Now clench your glutes and see what happens to your feet. They turn out, and if they don't turn out, you feel like you want them to turn out because that's what happens when we clench our glutes. So if we're like this all the time with our glutes clenched, or when we were pregnant, we were doing that whole waddle walk with our feet outwards, this weakens your external rotators. Now remember what we said about why you end up having to clench your glutes? Because you have weak external rotators and you clench your glutes to compensate to stabilize your pelvis. But by keeping your glutes clenched, you're actually weakening your external rotators even more. So what I want you to do, we have an assignment today. I want you to check your butt and look at other people's as well. I want you to assess if you are a glute clencher. Okay, so when you are doing any activity, whether it's washing the dishes, brushing your teeth, even sitting, you would be surprised. I want you to squeeze your glutes and then relax them and see if you feel a difference. I also want you to check your feet occasionally. Do you have one foot that turns out and one foot that's straight? Do both of them turn out slightly? What can happen is you can actually clench on one side and not on the other. And this will cause a misbalance as well, and that one foot turning out. So I really want you today and throughout the rest of this week to be very aware of what you're doing with your glutes. Okay? And just for a little bit of fun, can you spot which photo I am clenching my glutes in? Hopefully you got it right. So now you'll be able to have a look around and watch and just see who around you is clenching their glutes all the time, and use that as a trigger to remind you, am I clenching mine? Check, okay? Because the more you clench your glutes, the weaker your glutes are going to get and the weaker your pelvic floor is going to get. And we're going to get into that one in the next video. Okay, chat soon.